the detailed understanding of the mapping, the idea of spatial distribution, the geographical phenomena becomes very difficult to visualization. Optional mapping focuses only on Indian mapping. Okay, so first of all, earlier so last 10 years ago, so if you see the pattern 10-15 years ago, so there was a world mapping also over there. Go through last 15 to 20 years of so mapping location, identify a particular trend, try to shortlist. For optional, there was a demand for connecting this optional mapping classes, particularly targeting this so compulsory question. The mapping for optional, which has been so a bit of a very tough nut to crack for the aspirants.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of VisionIAS related to mapping classes for geography optional. And to discuss about it, we have today an esteemed faculty of VisionIAS, Rajes Sir. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Kapil.
Rajes Sir, mapping is something very core to geography. Everybody knows it, right? But what is the relevance of this mapping for geography optional subject?
Yeah. So normally any general studies student, even without a geography optional, would also cover mapping. But that is from a very general point of view, from the prelims point of view alone. But for a person who is who has taken geography optional, he has to cover the mapping in thorough and detailed manner. One, from the point of view of enriching the answer, and second, there is a compulsory question in the paper 2 of geography optional. So where one has to mark a total of 10 map entries, and since that is a compulsory question, everyone has to thoroughly do it. So and also, like so without the detailed understanding of the mapping, the idea of spatial distribution, the geographical phenomena becomes very difficult to visualization. Even for that purpose also, to make your geography knowledge bit more detailed. So one has to do mapping exercise in a very thorough manner.
So like as you touched this point, GS students also do mapping. So how is mapping for optional different from mapping for GS?
Yeah. So for a GS student, thinking only from the prelims point of view, so one has to cover in a broad manner, focusing on those locations which are in use, and focusing on those locations which are important worldwide. For example, what are the important major mountains in the world, rivers in the world? Okay, so or those locations which are recently in news because of some disputes or some some conflicted region or not. In the context of India also, it is almost same. It goes in so more detailed sections, like it covers the physiography, the environment and all. But when you compare the same exercise with respect to optional mapping focuses only on Indian mapping. Okay, so first of all, earlier so last 10 years ago, so if you see the pattern 10-15 years ago, so there was a world mapping also over there. So in the paper one has to mark the world mapping locations on a world map, and in case of paper 2, so there was Indian mapping locations. Now currently the trend is that one has to mark only Indian mapping locations. So here, not only knowing the locations is important, you also have to pinpoint it on the map. Because for a person who is appearing for geography optional, the first compulsory question in paper 2, there will be India map. On the India map, you have to mark 10 entries, approximately you have to mark, and for each of them you have to write a significance, physical, cultural, social significance, whatever the significance you can recall, or any current one also. So this becomes a very differentiating factor in terms of marking it actually on the paper and writing about this, which is not required for a GS student. And second thing is it goes in little bit more detailed manner. Okay, so not only those locations which are important, which are traditionally considered to be important, so you have to go in little bit more detailed, in depth. Even many locations, it happens that sometimes you have not even heard about this. Even after studying the Indian geography in depth, you have not heard about this, like that. You have to go in more depth here, and the current relevance as well as the significance of geographical and social context. You have to remember this. Yep. So in prelims, the information about the location is already given. You just have to recognize this. Here it is not.
Right. And so, like, so somebody who now has taken geography optional and is looking to enrich and get better marks in mapping, how should the student approach this mapping section?
So when we go through the mapping questions which come in optional paper 2, so it becomes so one thing is very clear, it's very difficult for anyone to attempt all 10. There's no choice here, you have to attempt all 10. Each entry carries 2 marks, total of 20 marks is dedicated here. And very rarely I have seen a candidate who has attempted, at least leave about so going it right, who has attempted all 10. Even if a candidate attempts around 7 to 8, it is considered to be decent. Okay, so in that 1 or 2 may again go wrong. Okay, so it's a very challenging thing to attempt all. Second thing is, so many of the locations are not very generally known. Many times even I as a faculty also will be surprised to know that, okay, so even I don't know, I have not heard about this. Exactly kahan par hai, like it becomes very challenging. So one has to be very thorough with this part, and it cannot be done on some single list or some single book. Okay, as you may find some of the books are there in the market. Just by going through that, if you think you will be able to cover all the Indian mapping, no, it is not possible. It is something which has to be done on daily basis. Throughout there, it has to be done on daily basis. One, while reading Indian geography, you get a lot of examples, lot of so locations from the textbooks and from the material wherever one is reading. And in addition to that, on daily basis, there is in newspaper, there is something or the other in news. For GS, we will not consider all of them. For optional, we will consider many of them. Okay, so how do we know whether it is important or not? Trend analysis. Go through last 15 to 20 years of so mapping location, identify a particular trend, try to shortlist. There are a few important trends. Okay, so for example, compulsorily there will be a question on drainage system or lakes. Okay, so Indian drainage system, not at a river level, it's a tributary, sub-tributary level. And any of the reservoir, whether it is in news or not, or any of the recently declared, so launched hydropower projects and all, so like this. And obviously, yeah, it has to be done on daily basis and it has to be revised at regular intervals.
So, what challenge students generally face while preparing for mapping and optional?
The first is, as I said earlier, trend analysis. They don't know like how to prepare and how to focus on a particular area, or it's just like we just have to make a random notes and then try to mug up and all. So second important challenge is to the visualization, because you by knowing the location is not sufficient. You have to know where exactly it is located, which part, which state within the state, in which part of the state it is located. So that kind of visualization becomes a very important challenge. And also the compilation. Okay, so because whatever the material which is available, as I was seen, so it's just, it includes everything. We cannot, it becomes difficult for someone who is preparing optional. So it becomes challenging to so make a proper notes out of this and revise that at regular intervals.
So, Vision now has also, started this mapping classes for optional based upon the challenges you are describing, right? So, how does we tackle those challenges and what is there in this mapping class for optional?
Yeah, so we have been conducting GS mapping classes since a long time. I think this is the 9th year we are conducting this mapping classes for general studies. And for optional, there was a demand for conducting this optional mapping classes, particularly targeting this so compulsory question. So we decided to launch along with the general studies mapping. So there will be total of 13 dedicated class covering only mapping. Okay, so in that first 4 classes will be for world geography mapping. I know world geography mapping is no more asked, but so you can never know UPSC changing the pattern, so just to be ready. And anyway, you would need that for your general studies. For optional, this will be enriching the answer. Okay, so for answer writing in in paper 1, this will be very much helpful. So after that, 9 total classes for Indian mapping part. So where the first 4 classes will be covering the basics, and next 5 classes will be covered in the advanced manner. Okay, so that we have a thorough coverage of the entire Indian mapping section, both from the static as well as current point of view, and in a very thematic manner we are going to go. So it's not something random. Okay, so in a very thematic manner, and in the class we are not only going to write, we are also going to point it out. Okay, so I would expect the students to bring their atlas to the class, and on then and there I want them to point it out and mark it there. And we'll also be having some so tests, so practice questions, and there's all obviously the mentorship support is also there. So that we want to so crack this the mapping for optional, which has been so a bit of a very tough nut to crack for the aspirants.
So the classes are not just just telling about the mapping, it's of the application of mapping within the class itself.
Yes. This is going to be a very interactive section where we are going to sit and do it together. Okay, so and it will be very much so fun-filled experience. It appears like as if somebody is actually traveling through the different parts of India and trying to so understand them. So I really love this mapping class. I hope the students would also like it.
So as you said, like before we end this session, that mapping is something which is a difficult nut to crack. So what would be your advice to students who also find it to a very difficult nut to crack?
Okay, so regular revision, that is the only thing. Okay, so you have to revise regularly, because so once you start doing the same thing again and again, okay, so let's say you have some locations identified and you want to revise it, you can just keep a particular time of the day where you so let's say just immediately after getting up in the morning, first thing you do is okay, so identify few locations, and if at all you have already done it, okay, so try to recall and revise them. If you do it on daily basis, it becomes easy. And visualization, most important is visualization. Okay, so you have to visualize this on the map, and without that it becomes so very so a static and boring thing to do. Okay, so I find it to be very interesting part of geography.
Thank you so much, sir, for guiding about how to approach this mapping for optional. So aspirants, I hope you now have a good idea about how to approach this mapping for optional section, and to know more about our mapping classes for optional of geography, do visit our website. Thank you.